freaking first cut. Golly. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's FedEx St. Jude Championship. It is the playoffs. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Hello, Greg.
Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs?
Playoffs?
You kidding me? They're here. Rick, last week at the Wyndham Championship, it felt like it took forever. But upon reflection, this season has not taken forever. It has flown by. And on one hand, I can't believe the Wyndham is actually over. And on the other hand, I can't believe the playoffs are actually here. So it's I'm in a very strange place time-wise right now.
Playoffs? I could say that all day long. Yeah, well, this is the second year of the new format. The FedEx Cup's been around for 17 years, and we've gone through a lot of different iterations of this. This event in itself has had kind of a weird history. It was at times the WGC event, and then it kind of took over the tournament history for the Northern Trust. And at one time, the FedEx St. Jude Classic was a regular full field event.
Right before the U.S. Open.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on here. The good news is TPC Southwind is a golf course that we've seen a lot. We'll talk about that in just one second. But the new format is now 70 players, not 125. So second year of 70 players, which means, Greg, this is a no-cut event. It will be similar to your signature events, to something of that nature where you're getting everybody guaranteed 4 rounds except for a DQ or a WD.
Look, this is I think a change that I've enjoyed. I think it's pretty cool that the hunt for the playoffs is a real thing, and you have some players who have everybody on the PGA Tour is a great player, but relatively speaking, you have some guys who have played great golf that did not make the playoffs. And I think it's pretty cool that the playoffs are at a premium. Some of the players may not agree, and that's fine. I certainly understand that as well. But having the playoffs sit in a premium position the way they are now, I think is a pretty cool thing. And it means that everybody here has really had a very impressive season, and it's well earned to be here. So there are a lot of things in this time when we're making a lot of changes to the structure of the PGA Tour. There are a lot of things that I question. There are some that I like. This is one of those things that I really do like.
Yeah, I think it is always better to make your playoffs more exclusive as opposed to less exclusive. And that's what the PGA Tour has done. Troy, if you want to share my screen, I've got the scorecard here for TPC Southwind for this week. Greg, it's a par 70, 7,200 yards, just the one par 5 on the front. That is number 3. And the other par 5 on the back, that is number 16. I mentioned it earlier. This is a course we've seen a lot of. I don't care what the tournament name was, but we've played TPC Southwind in some form or fashion, I believe, every year for a long time.
Yeah, it has a rich history, and it's a pretty cool golf course. It's an interesting spot for a playoff event for a number of reasons. One, it's very challenging tee to green. There are 11 water hazards on the golf course. You have some of the narrowest fairways on the PGA Tour. You have some rough that is difficult to predict. It's that Bermuda rough, just like we saw last week at Sedgefield. But you're typically coming in with slightly longer clubs. I mean, it's not a long iron fest. It's not a wedge fest either. A lot of the clubs that you're hitting into these greens are in that 125 to 200 yard range. Almost 80% of your approach shots. And I think the healthiest amount is 150 to 175. So a lot of mid irons into the greens here. And that has a tendency of highlighting who the best ball strikers in the field are. You look at some of these past winners: Lucas Glover, Will Zalatoris, Abraham Answer, Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka. These are all players who have, at least at times, driven it well. And they have, for most of their career, been very solid iron players. And I think that's a testament. That's what it takes to play well at TPC Southwind. They're also not players with the greatest putting history. The greens are fairly flat. They're fairly benign. They are not overly challenging, even though we've seen some players have horrendous weeks on the greens. Tony Finau comes to mind. Scotty Scheffler has had his struggles on these greens. But at the same time, players on Team No Putt have done really well here.
Oh, okay. That's music to my ears, Greg. And you're right. That Bermuda, which will start the week at like 3 inches, you saw that a lot last week, where guys just couldn't judge it right. It's not that they couldn't get their club through. It's just sometimes it comes out hot, sometimes it comes out dead, and it's a bit of a guessing game. And you're right. There are a lot of narrow fairways out here that are going to ask for a bit of precision. But I like the way when you went through some of those names. I mean, yes, it's a playoff event, so you are going to get now the better players are playing the event. So it's more likely that they are finding success at this event. But you've got to be a pretty well-rounded, stout player to beat this field this week.
Yes. And I would say you can go back pretty far. Probably, when did they make that change? Was Brooks Koepka the first year that it was a WGC event? I think that's true, because Justin Thomas won at Bridgestone in 2018. I think that was the last year it was there, which means
I'll take your word for it.
These last 5 winners that I just mentioned were all WGC winners or playoff winners. And I do think those fields have similarities in their strength. So like we've seen, let's just say that's true. For the last 5 years, like we've seen, you got to be a really good ball striker to separate yourself from this field, which is an elite field.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let us start getting into this. The salaries are out. There's 70 players in this field. It's a lot of names and a lot of guys you've heard of or who've had great seasons. That's how we got here. We'll jump right into that after a quick word from our partners.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
And we're back. All right, Greg. So this is the cheat sheet on my website, rickrungood.com. And there are 5 golfers in that 10K range. Scotty Scheffler leads the way at 12,400. Xander Schauffele is 11,400. So that's a $1,000 gap. Rory McIlroy, 11,100. Ludwig is 10,200. Colin Morikawa is 10,000. The problem, I already know the problem because I've looked through this field, that we are going to have for at least the first 30 names in this sheet here are that because of the qualification process, everybody seems like a good play, but you can't play them all, Greg. So what do we do here?
No, and this range is especially challenging, right? Because I think Scotty and Xander and Rory and Ludwig and Colin and we'll stop at those 5. I think they're all very good plays. So how do we decipher, since you can't play them all, unfortunately? Well, I think Scotty Scheffler is the premium. That's why he's priced the highest. I have a really hard time going away from him. Like you said, this is a video game, and Scotty Scheffler winning this tournament, it feels like it's simply up to him. And that's not if he plays well or not. It's whether or not he makes 5-footers. And I can't get away from that. Especially when you look at something like we said earlier, that's a Team No Putt event, right? I mean, I can't think of a more perfect scenario for a player than this. I don't know how you get away from it.
For the first couple guys here, I want to play devil's advocate with you here, Greg. So
Please.
Scotty Scheffler, best player in the world, video game like metrics. I'm going to pull up his history at TPC Southwind, and it's not great. T31, miscut, 14th, 15th, 43rd, and lost strokes putting in his last 4 trips. I will also point out that he has lost strokes putting in 3 of his last 4 starts overall. What, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being not concerned at all and 10 being nuclear bomb level of concern, how concerned are you about those 2 things?
3.
Oh. So
not very concerned. We have seen one event this year where Scotty Scheffler had an abysmal performance on the greens, and his finish reflected it. Only the U.S. Open. Only at Pinehurst. On flat greens, I know the numbers and his history don't look great here. But on flat greens, I don't think you're going to see him losing 6 strokes to the field. And if he loses 1 stroke to the field, like he did at the Olympics, he can still win. Right? If he loses 3 strokes to the field, like he did at the Open Championship, he finishes top 10. You can't have a higher floor than this.
Yeah, I believe the correct rebuttal, and the one that you quickly found, was that you can win by losing strokes putting.
Yeah. And by the way, I will add that has happened at this event before.
JT did it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
In 2020. So it is a possibility here. Rick, in 3 out of his last 5 tournaments, he has gained over 10 strokes approaching the green or more. At the Memorial, 12.94. At the Open, 11.14. At the Olympics, 10.26. These are like, look, this is the thing that's so hard to understand when you get up to this level. Xander Schauffele won 2 majors this year. He is the 5th best iron player on the PGA Tour this year, according to purely strokes gained. One of the very clearly, no matter how you look at it, best players in the game. Scotty for the year doubles him. He doubles the guy who's 5th in strokes gained approach. And he's more accurate off the tee.
I'm not even that good in PGA Tour 2K24.
You could play Southwind in that game.
Yeah, of course you can.
I think you can. Yeah.
Yeah. If it is not Scotty, is it Xander? Is that the next logical move to make?
I would not fault you for it, but
Oh.
I actually think the next move is the bottom of the range. I like in the bottom.
Okay.
Colin. Okay, now Colin Morikawa is extremely accurate off the tee, as you know. He is extremely precise with his irons. He is having an all-time ball striking year, completely overshadowed by Scotty. He is putting better, despite a poor performance at the Olympics. This is a great course fit for Colin Morikawa, who also has a tied 5th here. Every finish here has been T26 or better. So he's played well. He's played well enough here. And I just think he's having a great year. I think he comes in with great form. I love what he's done ball striking wise, and I love the course fit. So it's really hard for me to fade Scotty, and I, in most cases, won't. But if I did, I would take the discount of, what is that, $2,400.
Yeah.
And with Colin Morikawa.
2,400 down from Scotty to Colin, and even 1,400 down from Xander to Colin. And it is interesting because of how good all of these guys have been. If you don't go Scotty, it does open up a lot of possibilities. Okay, so Scotty, Colin, then do we go back to Xander? Are we sneaking into Rory? Are we on Ludwig? Rory's got, I believe, off the top of my head, it's like 1.5 strokes gained per round at this golf course, which I think is the most of anybody in at least 24 rounds or something like that. So Rory's been great around here as well.
He's got a T7 all the way back in 2012. Then he didn't play here for a while. Came in tied 4th at when it became a WGC. So in 19, he started playing here again. And when it was the FedEx St. Jude Classic, but the first 2 times he played it, this was really all about, do I want to play the week before the U.S. Open or not?
Right.
That was kind of the decision maker. But then eventually it becomes WGC, plays every year. He's got a T4, a T12. Last year, a tied 3rd finish, which I think is all great. I worry a little more with Rory about his errancy than I do with Xander. I think Xander's in a better place with his short irons and wedges, though his record isn't great here either. Xander does have a tied 6th here. So that becomes a little bit of a tough call. I have some questions, although the questions with Xander are the same questions as they are with Scotty, except like regarding the record. I don't have the same question about the putter. He's a very reliable putter.
My devil's advocate for Xander was going to point out that it is relative, but this has basically been one of his worst golf courses on the PGA Tour. He's just better, just slightly better than average. He's getting 0.27 strokes per round. Now that's still better than average. It's better than the field. It's very good. But when you're Xander Schauffele, you're used to seeing a half a stroke, 1 stroke. The places that he crushes 2 strokes per round. So that was going to be my devil's advocate on Xander's, that this has historically not been a great stop for him.
No, and he hasn't driven it well here, right? Looking at the data, he loses strokes off the tee here quite often, which is not something that you typically see out of Xander Schauffele. And it leads you to believe that he doesn't like the golf course. He doesn't like the shots, right? He doesn't see them. On the positive side, what's the opposite of devil's advocate? It's got to be angels.
Angels. What's the opposite of an advocate? Somebody who goes against you.
Angels opposition.
Angels opposition.
Okay, so to play Angels opposition, Xander did make some changes to his golf swing this year. I think he has a more reliable fade shot now. Not that this is a fader's golf course, but maybe some of those shots he doesn't like, he sees in a different light this year. So that's a possibility. But again, that's why Xander goes behind Scotty.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Because I just think Scotty's wounds are self-inflicted. And I think he's in a place where he can handle that. So, yeah, I think it's Scotty, number 1, Colin, number 2, Xander, number 3, Rory, number 4, Ludwig, number 5.
And all very good options.
Yes, that's it. That's very important. We're trying to decide here. So I'm not picking on it. All of these guys can win the golf tournament.
Yeah, we're splitting atoms over here. The 9K range. Tommy Fleetwood leads the way at 9,800, fresh off his silver medal. Patrick Cantlay is 97. Victor Hovland is 95. Hideki is 93. Corey Connors is 91. And Russell Henley is 9,000. It's only a 6 golfer range here in the 9Ks. Greg, how would you like to focus our attention?
I have a very difficult time avoiding Hideki Matsuyama in this range. I was so impressed with that performance at the Olympics. I mean, it was just elite. It was classic Hideki Matsuyama for an entire tournament. So I love that aspect. I love his record here. He's got a tied 2nd, tied 16th. His last 3 starts, all top 20s. I think that his putter has improved, which could go a long way at this venue. This just feels like it's time for Hideki to play like he's played all year.
Yeah, I mean, when he has played, and which is, I mean, he's got a couple of WDs or like a couple of DNFs or DNSs did not start, a WD maybe. But when he plays great. And the high end stuff is back. The ball striking is back. He's $9,300. He is cheaper than Victor Hovland and having 10 times the year as Victor is. The other guys there, Patrick Cantlay, I think is the most interesting because he's got a decent history around here. He's trending in the right direction, but I still don't know what to make out of Patrick. There are a couple of other interesting options. Like I'm buying stock in Connors. I think Henley's great, but Hideki being that cheap with as much win equity as I believe he has is I believe the right play there.
All right. So when I look at this range, it's similar, maybe with the unfortunate exception of Victor Hovland at this point, based on what we've seen. This range is similar to the 10K range where they're all good options. You could even make a case that Victor, if nobody plays him, could be a high upside leverage play. I'm not going to go make that argument. But I'm very interested in Cantlay. And I really just have a feeling that Patrick Cantlay is going to have a great playoff run. And I think it starts here. I like what I've seen out of his game. His iron play has really improved. And he, like Scotty Scheffler has racked up a lot of really good finishes with really bad putting. Patrick Cantlay has racked up a lot of really good finishes without great iron play, at least without great strokes gain numbers. But lately, he's been phenomenal with his iron play. So I'm very encouraged about that. I think there's a very good chance that his putter heats up this week on a golf course like this. He came in second here last year. He has another tied 12th finish here. So it's not a flawless record, but it's certainly he's shown that he can do it here. So I have a really good feeling about Cantlay. On that note, statistically, Tommy Fleetwood may be a better option. I personally feel a little better about Cantlay.
It's interesting. This is the time of year where Cantlay seems to heat up, and his last 3 or 4 starts have been showing a lot of life. Tommy's been having just a much better year in general. Doesn't have the win, has a handful of top 10s, including his most recent, which was that runner-up finish, the silver medal at the Olympics. One, to me, feels like a safer floor option. I talk about Fleetwood. And the other one is the guy that, if the only thing that mattered was winning, I would be much more interested in Patrick Cantlay.
And I think that's some pretty fair analysis. I think it's very fair. Maybe ownership divides that up for you. One guy's more popular than another. Cantlay's just been quiet. I don't feel like there's going to be a ton of people on him.
Greg, he's barely played.
Right.
I mean, he's played. So 3 of his last 5 starts are majors. Okay, so just think about that. What the major championship season has looked like. He played May 19th, June 9th, June 16th, June 23rd. Then he took a month off to the Open. We haven't seen him in 3 weeks since the Open Championship.
Yeah. And I will say that's a good thing for Patrick Cantlay specifically.
I think so too.
Because now I don't know what's going on off the golf course with him running the tour and all that. So let's just put that aside. He needs to take on a lighter schedule than a lot of guys because of his back. When he starts playing a lot, he can get himself into a little trouble. So he's figured out how to not play a lot on the PGA Tour so he can play his best, which is an important caveat there. He's chosen not to play a lot so he can play his best when he does. And I think he's done a really nice job of that. My hope is that takes some ownership away from him and I can get a little edge there.
I'll put just a bow on this with Corey Connors here. So I think Corey Connors is starting to put together that Aaron Rye type stat profile, Greg, where he's always had the really great ball striking floor, starting to find dividends with the putter. We talked about this a lot throughout last week as Rye was in the mix. You don't know how long that's going to stay or even if it's going to stay, but this is the math problem that we're trying to solve. And Corey Connors has the results. It is 7 straight top 27. No, way more than that. He has not finished outside the top 27 since the Zurich Classic. Bunch of top 15s in the mix. Bunch of good putting performances. That's the blueprint.
It looks awesome. Now, I'll add to that with one thing. I think Russell Henley is in a very similar position. So again, like I love Hideki right in the middle. And then Connors and Henley, I kind of had it as a split. Like, who do you feel like is going to play better? I don't know. And then Fleetwood and Cantlay, who do you feel like is going to play better? And those are your 3 options, even though it's everybody in the range.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's really tight. There's a reason that these guys are all here. That's kind of the point. There's a lot of great recent form because that's part of the qualification.
How they got here.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay. We're going to continue this conversation. We've got the 8s, the 7s, and the 6s. No $5,000 range this week. So we're going to continue after a quick word from our partners. And we're back. There's 10 golfers in this $8,000 range. It starts with Tom Kim, Tony Finau, Sungjae Im, and Sahith Theegala. Sitting right in the middle is Billy Horschel. Then on the bottom half of this range is Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, Aaron Rai, fresh off his victory in Greensboro, Cam Young, and Shane Lowry. Lowry's the only one of those 10 that I named that is coming off a missed cut in their last start. All right, Greg. Now things are getting interesting.
Yes. But it's still so tight, Rick. I mean, you may have some other questions that you got to answer. But I'm a believer, like I believe Patrick McDonald feels the same way, that Tony Finau is headed for a great playoff season. I think that evidence has been there all along, all season long. And you look at what he did at the Memorial, T8, T3 at the US Open, T5 at the Travelers, an abrupt miscut at the Open, and then he comes back with a T12 at the 3M Open. I just think that Tony Finau is in great form, and I think he's going to have a great week. He does have a T5 here, some other average events, but he can play well here too.
Yeah, I do also agree. I actually think I think that this is a trending spot for him. And then when we get to the 8,100 yard event next week at altitude, he is going to hit golf balls that never come down.
Yes. And he's going to be fired up about it. But I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Tony Finau being the guy that mixes up the big three heading into Eastlake. And that would start with a really strong performance this week.
Yeah, he is $8,800, so he's towards the top end of that range. Okay, Tony Finau gets a check mark.
Yep. This one's a little tougher for me, but I just love the way that he's played, and that's Billy Horschel. Are you concerned about fatigue heading into this week at all, Rick?
I don't think so, man. I mean, Billy, and I mean this in a good way. He's like a big kid, right? This dude's I think he's got plenty of energy. Did you see him? They are in the dark. It is hole number like 39 for him yesterday. He's got a putt from 28 feet. I don't know what it was. He misses it on the right-hand side. He's slapping his leg. He's still full on energy. He's pumping up Aaron Rai walking down the fairway. This dude's engine never stops. So no, I do not have any fatigue issues with Billy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this year that he's had has been one of the best for him in a long time, especially if you compare it to last year. And then you start looking back at his record when he was a little younger, like 2013, 2014, when he was playing really well. He had 4 straight top 10s at this event from 2013 to 2017. When it was a WGC, he finished tied 9th in 2019. I think this is a good spot for him. I think it really fits his game, and he's flying high on confidence.
Yeah, and I think that he's looking at this saying, hey, I'm in the midst of a career year. I've got 3 more weeks to go. Like you said, I'm flying high. I had a runner-up at a major a couple of starts ago. I don't think we're going to have any problem getting Billy across the finish line here.
No, I don't either. So I'm kind of an underrated play. You got Sahith Theegala, Sungjae Im just above him. You got Justin Thomas, Sam Burns right below him. Very curious to see how ownership shakes out with Billy.
Here's the bottom of this range that I find most interesting, right? You've got Sam Burns, 8,300, good, not great year. Aaron Rai, who now, if he was a secret before, he's a secret no longer, right? I mean, he's probably going to be pretty popular at $8,200 fresh off that victory. Cam Young, who coughed this thing up on Sunday, probably should have won this golf tournament. And then Shane Lowry, fresh off a missed cut. So there's certainly more question marks at the bottom of the 8K range than we've seen before.
Yes. But at the same time, like Aaron Rai is not a question mark to me. I don't think that win is accidental. This is the kind of performance that he puts up constantly. He gained 2.5 strokes putting. He can do that again this week. He had an exceptional week with his irons, but he has been all year, right? The guy's 4th on tour in strokes gained total. He's sitting down here at 8,200. I think there's a big value in hitting fairways, just like there was last week. There's a big value in hitting greens in regulation. There's a big value in a patient style of play this week. I think Aaron Rai checks all those boxes. And I normally don't play the winner from the week, but how would that have worked out last year at this event? So I go right back to Aaron Rai. I have no issue with that.
For those of you wondering, it was Lucas Glover who won the Wyndham and this event back-to-back weeks last year. Okay, so let's remove Rai from that conversation. You have to play one of these golfers. Sam Burns, Cam Young, Shane Lowry. Which one do you play?
Yeah, I'm playing Shane Lowry.
Okay.
He missed the cut. He lost 3.3 strokes putting. I still think that Shane Lowry has been putting better. I also think his record at Wyndham is very subpar. So I didn't expect him to have a great week.
Yeah, it was bad, or just like there wasn't much to. It was too many starts and not enough good finishes.
Yeah, a lot of like 55th place finishes. Yeah. So I don't think the golf course agrees with him. Here he has a tied 6. He has a T23. He's putted well here, at least last year, even though he came in tied 46th. I still think Shane Lowry's game is in good enough form to put up a solid week. So I probably Cam Young's a real hard one to figure out.
There's never been a golfer that I've been so enamored with and so disappointed with for 3 straight years.
Like, what did he shoot on Sunday, Rick?
Well, he played 2 rounds on Sunday. He lost 0.2 of a stroke to the field in round 3, and then he lost 2.5 strokes to the field in round 4. So he lost 3 strokes in the final day.
In the 4th round, because I was looking at this, I could not believe how bad he putted.
Lost 5 strokes.
He missed like 5 putts inside of 6 feet for birdie.
And they looked ugly. Like it looked like, what I always loved about Cam Young is how he has a great combination of power and finesse. He has this touch around the greens and he can roll it. I don't even know how to describe it. Bulky. I don't know if it was like jabby, push, like he's wishing it in. It just looked bulky to me.
Agonizing. And I know it is for him too. So, I mean, he is striping it and getting nothing out of it. I guess my big concern with Cam Young is we're going to get in this position again where he's in contention. Things don't go his way on Sunday. He falls from contention to 32nd.
I mean, he's the guy who has 0 wins is like basically atop the leaderboard on Sunday morning. Everybody's got to play 36 holes. He's looking at a board that he should be just devouring, and he fades into oblivion.
Now, that being said, this is always a problem until it's not anymore.
Of course it is. But right now it's a problem.
It just still feels so fresh.
It's a problem right now, though.
Yeah. It's hard for me to even analyze because it's just it's so good and so bad at the same time.
And you know what he does? Now I'm picking on him, but you know what he does that really annoys me? Is as soon as he's out of it, he starts throwing darts. As soon as he's out of it, he hits it to 2 feet, taps it in. He hits it to 18 inches, he taps it in. I'm like, dude, where was this 9 holes ago?
Yeah, but I will say he's still throwing darts before that.
That's true.
It's not 1 foot, it's 6 feet. And
he misses it. Yeah.
Then he puts up a green.
Oh,
right. He just makes these mistakes that when he learns how to avoid, if he can learn how to avoid those costly but fixable, silly mistakes, he will be so hard to beat.
The 7K range. There are 19 golfers here. The top of the range, this is Wyndham Clark, Matt Fitzpatrick, Adam Scott. The middle, Jason Day, Max Homa. the bottom, Minwoo Lee, Will Zalatoris, Keegan Bradley. This, Greg, is where I think the two types of golfers meet. Okay. Golfers like Akshay Bhatia, Christian Bezadenhout, Davis Thompson, who are kind of finding it at this time of the year. They are accelerating into the playoffs. And there are guys like Matt Fitzpatrick, Jordan Spieth, Max Homa, who have done some good work at times this year, but they're limping into the playoffs. This is where I feel like we start to get the first real group of those players.
I think that's very well said. And they meet right in the middle. And now you know why the pricing is the way it is. Right? That's why there's so few guys in the 8, 9, 10K range. This is where they all meet. That being said, I'm looking for momentum, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a young player. So I am very drawn to Adam Scott this week. Adam Scott finished.
So is my wife. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I couldn't pass that one up.
Yep, she's not the only one. I knew. I almost said I'm very attracted to Adam Scott.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's every week.
Yes, every week.
No, this is way too nerdy for that kind of talk. This is about fantasy golf, not any other kind of fantasy. Okay,
that's a different
fantasy sports.
It's a different show.
Adam Scott at 7,700, tied 10th at the Open, 2nd at the Scottish Open. Hasn't missed a cut since the PGA Championship. His ball striking has been phenomenal. He's really found something with the putter. And at TPC Southwind, he finished tied 5th last year. He has a tied 10th back in the day and a 7th back in the day. I think it's a great spot for him. I think he's playing great, driving it well. Sign me up.
Yeah, and should be well rested. Haven't seen him since the Open Championship, and that was about 3 weeks ago. So Adam Scott is 7,700. I'm going to throw out Wyndham Clark here, Greg, because I want to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
It's been a very bizarre year for Wyndham. I don't like what I see when I'm watching him. I do not like the body language. I don't like a lot of the rounds that he's putting together, but I'm going to remove all of that from my brain. He has 3 top 15 finishes in his last 4 starts, and they've come at some pretty significant events: Travelers Championship, Scottish Open, and the Olympics. And the final 3 rounds that he had at the Olympics were the best 54 holes, final 54 holes of anybody in the field. It was tied with Scotty and
Perez.
Victor Perez. Thank you. Yes. So he really played himself out of it on Thursday in the opening round. 3 phenomenal rounds, good enough to win rounds. So now basically 4, 8, 12, 11, like 11 of his last 16 rounds have been pretty good. And I'm absolutely certain he can win this golf tournament. And I also don't have to worry about him missing the cut.
It's a great concept. I looked at Wyndham Clark and that price. I shared the same thoughts as you. I do not like this golf course for him. That being said, I do not like TPC Sawgrass for him. And we all saw how that turned out. I just don't think he's in that form right now. Like I think he's grinding it out. He's a really good player. I don't like this venue. Next week, when we go to Colorado, even though I know nothing about the golf course other than the fact that it's in his home state and it's 8,100 yards, now I'm a little more interested. I think Wyndham Clark could have a great playoffs. I don't like this venue for him. That's why I mentioned Adam Scott ahead of Wyndham Clark. It's fair.
I think that you're going to have to make a call on Wyndham Clark one way or another. I'm more bullish than you are, and I see your side of it very, very, very easily.
Yeah. And I see yours. You know, I want to be on that side. If we were at a different golf course, I'd be jumping all over that price tag.
Where else we going here?
Down towards the bottom. I think
Okay.
you're going to like some of these.
Yeah.
Like, are we just playing Davis Thompson?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't. $7,400, T12 last week. He won a couple of starts ago. That was the culmination of a lot of really good starts. Yeah.
He's confident, putting great.
Yeah.
He's where did he go to college? I always
Georgia.
He did.
Wasn't he a Georgia Bulldog?
No, I don't think he was.
Oh, okay. It's either Georgia or Alabama.
Yeah, I think he was Alabama. I always get this confused.
Davis Thompson, golf. He went to Georgia. You were right.
It was Georgia.
Yeah. He's a Bulldog.
Okay. Yeah. So right, we're in the Southeast. Yeah. Okay. Another Bulldog on the PGA Tour. We're in the Southeast. I just think you got to play Davis Thompson. Now, speaking of Bulldogs, I'm pretty bullish on
Bulldogish. Yeah.
I'm glad you got that. I'm pretty bullish on Sepp Straka. There have been a couple of disappointing performances. The Open and the Olympics, I was also bullish on him, and it was just so-so. He putted terrible at the Olympics. He has not been putting well, but he has been striping it. This is the venue where he lost on a playoff to Will Zalatoris.
Epic playoff.
The next year he comes out, finishes 63rd. Not very great. I think he's hitting it too good. I think this is a great spot for him. I'm going back to Sepp Straka as well.
Okay, I don't mind that. I also liked a couple of these guys down here at the bottom. Taylor Pendrith. I mean, back-to-back T5s. He already has a win this year. Again, this is look at who you're comparing him against. Keegan Bradley, who's presumably preoccupied and his results are not great. Will Zalatoris, who has gone WD, miscut. $100 difference between Pendrith and those two. That's what I was referring to when I got to the top of this range.
Yes. I love Taylor Pendrith. He made my list. I don't think it's the best golf course for him, but with this kind of recent form and this kind of confidence, he can play it. He can handle it.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of things well on a lot of different golf courses. But I agree. If you just like blindly said, "Hey, is this a good golf course for Pendrith?" I'd be like, "No." But he's $7,100 and better than his peers.
He's too good for that.
Yeah, exactly.
I had one other guy in this range.
Yeah,
Alex Noren. Olympics, he was pretty popular. He had won at Le Golf National. He did not play well. He did not putt well. I still think that Alex Noren is in good form. He's got 2 starts at Southwind, a tied 12th and a WD. Putted well both times. His iron play was really the thing that held him back, but I think he's hitting it a lot better with his irons than he really ever has. So I'm in on Noren.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Okay, let's find some true value here. We'll go down to the $6,000 range, and as you can imagine, Greg, this is everybody else. 30 of them. The top half: Mav McNeely, Thomas Dietrich, and Max Grazerman, fresh off a pair of runner-up finishes. The $6,500 range, that'll get you Justin Rose, Denny McCarthy, Johnny Vegas, and Steven Yeager. And then the min-price golfers, those who earned their way into the FedEx St. Jude Championship but are at the very, very bottom: Jake Knapp, Nick Taylor, and Peter Malnati. What do you see here, Greg?
I thought you were going to read all the names to me.
No, I'm not reading 30 of them, no.
Okay. So we're in this range. There's, I think, some very solid analysis you can do. I think there's also some gut feelings that you can have here. So there's a little bit of both. I want to start with, I'm not going to go in order of price. I'm going to start with Eric Cole, who's probably my favorite play. Eric Cole came through last week with a tied 7th. We backed him. It was really good stuff. He has been putting phenomenally well. His iron play seems to be back. This is the Eric Cole that we know from last year. He has returned. I think this is a good spot for him. I heavily value iron play this week. He has one start here, T31.
He's back, baby.
Yes. This is Eric Cole.
Famous last words, but he's back, baby.
We'll see. We'll see. He came through last week. I may have said the same exact thing last week.
Yeah. Well, I remember, listen, we were talking about this when he had those 2 back-to-back top 10s at Rocket Mortgage and John Deere, and we were like, okay, this could be a flash in the pan, but he's gained throughout the bag. That is such a good sign. When guys do that, it's usually a sign of many good things to come. Has a couple of good starts in Scotland, then he gets back to America and he finishes T7. Like, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. It's great. And anytime I get a combination of a green iron play column and a green putting column, it's really hard for me to pass on, especially when there's a lot of finishes in the position column with single digits. I like all those. Those combinations are nice. So Eric Cole has made my list. I'm going to one more play up at the top, and then I got a couple down at the bottom. Cam Davis was my one and done play last week at the Wyndham Championship and missed the cut. Lost 4 strokes total. Lost strokes in every category, ball striking wise. I'm gonna go back.
Okay, I'm glad you said it first. I think that's right. So I bet him to win last week, and I'm pretty sure, at least in the second round, all of his losses were on 2 holes. He made an 8 on, I think, 5, which was a par 5, and then he made a double on maybe 16, whatever that par 3 is. And that was like it. I don't know. I think it was. I think this is a bounce back spot.
I think it's a bounce back spot too. Then you look at his record here: tied 6th, tied 13th, tied 60th in his 3 starts. And the tied 6th and tied 13th that we're going most recent to least recent. So in order of his starts here, he's gone T60th, the next time T13th, the next time T6th. I like the trend.
So
I'm coming.
Now top 5. I'm with you there. He is 6,800. Okay. Real quick, are you backing Max Grazerman?
I was hoping you weren't going to bring that up.
Come on, Greg. I have to. It's my job.
I don't know.
I say yes. I say yes. Why not? Right. Why not? Why not? Why not? Okay. How about this? He has been total strokes gained. So only behind Xander Schauffele since the U.S. Open. He's gained like 50 strokes to the field.
He's been great.
He's been great. The only 2 things that we've had bad to say about him the last 2 weeks have been just questions about his mentality.
Right.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I think it is good that he's just going to get right back to it again this week.
All right. So I said after 3M on this show last week that 3M was the peak, and there'd be a regression. The peak was the 13th hole on the 4th round of the Wyndham. Because that looked a lot like peak to me. But there's a world where you should trust the analytics. You should trust the numbers. If you're looking at numbers, Max Grazerman is a must.
It would be a lot better. It would be a lot better if these guys just didn't have any emotions and they were just robots, wouldn't it?
Well, maybe. It'd be a lot more predictable.
I was going to say, it would have been a lot less dramatic Sunday with Max Grazerman. Okay, so we got a couple options at the top part of that range. So Cole was 6,700, Cam Davis is 68, Grazerman, if you want to get involved, was 6,900. Is there anybody cheaper? Like, what's the lowest you're willing to go?
Almost to the bottom.
Okay,
6,100. I got a guy like at 6,100 and. Where is? Oh, I got 2 guys at 6,100 that I'd play. First and foremost, Brendan Todd. Brendan Todd has, I think, gotten his putting situation sorted out. So he's back to being a reliable, great putter. His ball striking statistics, as we know, never look great because of his distance, right? I think that has a huge effect. So he always seems to be playing like he can perform poorly and be in good form. And when he gets to courses where it kind of fits, he pops up like he did at the Wyndham last week, like he did at the John Deere Classic. So I think Brendan Todd is playing very well. And on a golf course where he has a tied 12th, a tied 18th, a tied 15th, I think this is also a golf course that he can handle.
I tend to agree with you. Okay, so Brendan Todd now has gained pretty significantly with the putter in 4 straight, and as kind of expected, was a 0 off the tee at Wyndham. That's what you're looking for, a golf course that does not require a lot of distance. He finished T12. That was one of the guys at the $6,100 range. The other one is either Patrick Rodgers or Seamus Power, Greg.
It is maybe all 3 of those guys are playable. In fact, they probably are, but Seamus Power was the guy that made my list.
Okay.
Now, Seamus Power finished tied 28th last week, tied 37th at the 3M, tied 65th at the Scottish Open, 17th at the John Deere Classic, tied 20th at the Travelers. Those are fine finishes. They're not getting you all hot and bothered. But he's driven it really well in all of them, which I think is an important aspect here. The ball striking seems to kind of be coming together. In that stretch, he only lost strokes putting once at the 3M Open. I'm looking at somebody who's getting really close to having a complete game. He's getting really close to it. Every week, it just seems like it's something, one thing kind of gets him. And it keeps him from real contention. So I think Seamus Power is a play with a lot of upside potential this week.
Yeah, the stat profile is starting to level itself out. It's starting to fill up more green. It's starting to be more consistent. It's starting to get back to what we would normally see. Look at his little distribution here. It's almost like a perfect little square over his last 100 rounds in all 4 categories. Interesting. That is interesting.
Complete player.
I'm with you on those. I think the dart throws that I would take, the lowest I would go, Victor Perez, 4th and 33rd in his last 2. He is number 70, so he needs a good week to get himself into the BMW Championship. And then I love the upside of Austin Eckroat. I just think he's got unreal firepower. He finished 6th last week. He's just give him 4 rounds. He might find a round of the day out there one day. I think he's going to make enough birdies. I don't know if he's going to finish well, but I think he will outperform his finishing position with fantasy points.
Well said. Also, could you draw some parallels between PGA National and TPC Southwind?
Yeah, sure. If it helps my case.
Yeah, there's a possibility, right? There's a lot of water at both of them. There's Bermuda grass at both of them. Right. You got Sepp Straka, who has played well at Southwind and won at the Honda. So I think that's an interesting thing to consider as well. I'd back Eckroat.
Anybody else, Greg? Anybody else? Going once, going twice for the $6,000 range?
No, there is nobody else worth playing other than those we have mentioned.
All right. So just to reiterate, I'm going to try to keep track of this. So my playoff plan is a 216-hole event starting right now. And everybody keeps their score to par, obviously. But after this week, only the top 50 in the FedEx Cup points move on. And then I'll try to keep track of this for the next 3 weeks and see who the actual FedEx Cup champ is.
So this is a real tournament. There's a trophy and FedEx Cup points awarded, but you keep your score and you start with it at the BMW.
Right.
And then are you awarded points at the BMW based on your net or gross score?
Yeah, I hadn't thought this through. So I think you are awarded points and money based on your like you start from 0 again next week. But then you add that to your Southwind score. And then when you get to the Tour Championship, that's what you start at.
Okay. It might need a little ironing out, but it's cool to keep track of.
I'm working on it. You asked me a question I hadn't thought of before.
Yeah, we can iron it out a little bit. Maybe get a steamer on it. But I'm very curious to see what kind of separation we get with scoring. Like, what would the Tour Championship leaderboard look like? Would it be because I mean, it could be an absolute blowout.
Yeah, Scotty might win by like 40 shots.
Well, now that is how you reward players for the regular season.
That's right.
Or that's how you reward the best players. Like, you ensure the best players finish near the top by extending the length of the tournament.
Okay, new idea. You just keep your running score to par all year long. And the guy who's the deepest under par at the end of the year is the champ.
What? Would you play a lot? Would you not?
Yeah, like Sungjae, like Sahith would have been the FedEx Cup champ last year.
Most under par. Go play in the easy events all summer.
Yeah.
Shoot 17 under and finish 32nd.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I like it.
I don't know. I got a lot of ideas. Some of them good, some of them pretty bad. But they're working up there. All right. So this week, the schedule fairly similar to the last couple of weeks. We've been getting into a good cadence here. So the mega preview show, same time, same place on Tuesday. Then we are going to have a network show on Wednesday, a network show on Friday, as well as round by round recap. So a very full week from us on the first cut. Producer Troy is doing all the hard work behind the scenes today. Thank you very much, Troy. Greg DuCharme is available at The Real GFD, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been the first cut. We'll catch you next time.